Am I being the jerk for not assisting my half-sister? We lack a substantial relationship due to our family history. When I was 5, our parents divorced, and my half-sister was born as a result of my mother's affair, arriving exactly 9 months after me. Despite my father staying with my mother until I disclosed her infidelity when I was 5, our connection is strained. He is the father of my half-sister, and in an arrangement my father gave my mother 2 houses in return for having his name removed from my half-sister's birth certificate. My father supported me with child support until I turned 8. Unfortunately, during my mother's custody week, she left me behind because her affair partner, who had no relation to me, decided not to include a child not his own in their holiday family visits. And half-sister pretty much hated me because her grandpa supposedly liked me better. They had tried to be civil and make sure I had a relationship with half-sister after that. But I didn't want anything to do with her either, so I never spent time with her after that. Half-sister would say she didn't have a sister, so I never claimed her. On the day I created my account, my half-sister unexpectedly called me. I was unsure how she obtained my number, but she was in tears, explaining how our mom had expelled her from the house and disowned her. She is now married to a stranger, someone I have no knowledge of. I ended the call abruptly, but she began texting me, expressing a desperate need for her sister's assistance. She says she has nowhere else to go. Her father cut contact a while ago, and no one is willing to come up to get her. She lives 6 hours away from where I live, which I guess is easy to figure as I live next door to my dad. I'm a bit torn because when she called again I told her we're not actually sisters, and I'm not coming to get her, nor am I giving her a place to stay until she's back on her feet. Then I hung up again. I've loved her number, but she's been calling me from other numbers. And now I have people from my mother's family telling me I'm an awful sister, that I should be more understanding because I was once a child and got kicked out and just need some insight because I want to know if I'm at all wrong or if I should have gone about it differently. Now, considering the top comments before delving into the updates, it's evident that many are suggesting, without directly stating it, that these individuals should consider taking her in if her situation means so much to them. The comments highlight the numerous people reaching out and urging action on her behalf. Some propose practical solutions, such as directing her to homeless shelters or encouraging her to find employment to manage her own expenses. She could join the military and love barrack life. See, there are many options. Not alone. Your mother's family has a lot of nerve. Are any of them stepping forward to help your half-sister out? Ultimately, you don't owe her anything due to some shared genetics. At the same time, do you want to act the same way she did? Definitely be cautious bringing someone into my home that I did trust enough to not be blind, etc. You know her better than we do. If you do decide to be the change she would like to see in the world, just BS her and to lay out all of the possible ground rules ahead of time. That's my main question. The part about them acting the same way she did strikes a familiar chord. If this had happened a few years ago, extending help might have made a significant difference. Reflecting on our childhood, it seems likely that she was merely echoing her parents' sentiments back then. However, now that we're both 25, it's perplexing why, after 17 years, she turns to me in times of need. I acknowledge that perhaps I shouldn't have expressed my thoughts when she was already emotional, but I find myself struggling to comprehend the dynamics of the situation. What is helping her, as far as I know? Most of the people calling/texting are people I don't have a relationship with. My grandma claims she has a full house right now, and since I technically live alone, she thinks how I should help half-sees her out. But she's saying that because of the whole family helps family mindset. I don't know her all that well anymore either. She's as much of a stranger to me now as she is to you. I just want to know what others would do in my place. That's a fair question. What would others do in your place that ends her will to run the gamut? I tend to go with my gut. If 17 years have passed since I last communicated with this individual, I would be uncertain about how to respond. To them, I might seem like a stranger off the street randomly claiming to be their grandchild, and the story about their grandmother having a full house could sound dubious, unless she provides specific details, such as mentioning that there are currently 16 people residing in her 3-bedroom house. It may be challenging to validate her situation. If there's one thing I learned growing up without much money, there's almost always room for a family. If you get any sense that your mother's family is just trying to get someone else to help her because they don't want to have to deal with her, then that could be a warning sign. You've raised questions I hadn't even thought about, to be honest. All themselves. They can't help her for whatever reason. And I have no idea how many people are staying with my grandma. She has a 4-bedroom place, but I haven't visited her in a few years, to be honest, and I don't talk to her all that much. No one seems willing to help her. And the more I think about certain things, the distance. Is there a history of drug involvement that might hinder her ability to hold a job? The more certain I become, the less willing I am to assist her, irrespective of our blood relation. Now, moving on to the initial update. 4 days ago, I created an account and considered seeking opinions on whether I was in the wrong for something. During this time, my half-sister called me in tears, revealing that our mother had evicted her, and she desperately needs her sister's support. I hung up the first time, and when she kept calling and texting, I told her we're not actually sisters, and I wasn't driving 6 hours to pick her up, nor letting her stay with me. I've been getting non-stop texts and calls from my maternal family since then. My maternal grandmother, the only person I stayed in any contact with, pretty much begged me to be a good sister and let half-sisters play with me. She told a half-sister I have my own house, gave her my number, etc. I've lost my grandmother, and everyone's saying that I should be understanding because we've both been abandoned by our mother. It isn't the same. I told my grandmother this, but no one seems willing to acknowledge that Dad tried to keep it civil so I could have a relationship with a half-sister, but who is many of their partner never viewed me as a sister. I distanced myself from her primarily because my dad never compelled me to play a motherly role, and my half-sister relocated shortly after. My mom, who had been working in child care, lost her job because it's challenging to find employment in that field when you've abandoned your own children in the middle of the night. It's been 17 years since I last saw my half-sister. I didn't know what she looked like until I came home today. She was sitting on my porch with a suitcase and a car. I think my grandmother's pulled off as soon as I parked. I did get out of the car. I was too angry to even move, and I'm still angry right now. She kept saying she needs me and started crying, telling me that our mom was awful, her dad cut contact, and my mom's new partner doesn't want her in his house. I live next door to my dad. So when a half-sister started knocking on my car window after Rigid stared at her, I called him and told him what was going on and asked what I should do. Dad told me to stay in my car and call the cops. Said I had a trespasser, which I did. I didn't get out until the cops came, and when they did, half-sister told them I agreed to let her stay. And now I'm leaving her homeless. I tried to show them the texts, specifically the only text I gave in response to everyone demanding I let her stay. No to have that space. Now that she claims sisterhood, there's a persistent request for her to stay with me. Met only with rejections. Faced with repeated assertions of being sisters, I took a decisive step, informing the authorities that I haven't seen this woman in 17 years. I don't recognize her, nor do I know what she looks like. Our connection is limited to sharing a biological mother. I even went to the extent of blocking my grandmother and reaching out to her via phone to establish boundaries. I didn't even get to speak. She said, Litchfield, look, oh bye, I love you, but you need to get over this. She's family and she needs you. And I've told your father you'd go to hell if you raised here to be so damn selfish. And you definitely will, because she's going through the same thing you went through. She hung up right after, and I told the cops they can book half-sister or drop her at a shelter. I don't care. I just want her off my property. They took her, and now I'm sitting here on my dad's couch wondering what the hell just happened. It doesn't want me to hang alone right now in case they show back up. I'm so mad right now. I don't get it. 17 damn years of no contact. I only speak to my grandmother on holidays. I don't know most of the aunts, uncles, and cousins that blew up my phone. But because my mom pushed me out, I have to do what they tell me to. I'm 25 years old. I've only had my dad and my paternal family for years. My mom and her family have done crap for me. None of them even know when my damn birth is, because even my grandmother texts me on the wrong day. Not even a phone call could bridge the gap. Despite her claims of desperately needing help, the insistence from others that one of us should assist her falls on deaf ears. I reiterate my stance. I don't know her, nor any of you, and I'm not inclined to welcome a complete stranger into my home. The 6-hour distance becomes a significant barrier, especially when I underwent surgery. It's deemed too far for a visit, yet not too far for attempts to coerce me into taking action against my will. Yes, the maternal side of your family should be helping out here and taking her in. Not your responsibility is crazy. How the maternal grandmother's has the dad. An opie would go to hell for being selfish. But not a word on her own daughter's lashed by your mother. I don't get why their partner doesn't even look after his own daughter. People in general seem to be generous with other people's homes, money, and time. I guess Opus can call grandma. You are right. Your daughter failed her. It is up to you to make things right. She's going through the same thing you went through. Yes, an 8-year-old child being abandoned by mother is the same as an adult in her 20s being cut off. Certainly, grandma. You see, it would require some truly outrageous behavior for that less than ideal side of the family to sever ties. There's no way I'd consider accommodating this person in my home. Allow me to express my appreciation for your resolute stance. The probable scenario is that my half-sister's challenging personality has led to a situation where no one who truly knows her is willing to provide shelter. The decision was that she wouldn't know what a big problem she was, and so you'd be the perfect sucker to take her in. Grandma could give two figs about the open half-sister's relationship. She just doesn't want to get stuck with a half-sister herself. Now for the second update. I checked the camera footage last night and this morning, after his turn by Mom's mother. Grandma had been looking under mats, rocks, and potted plants, the mailbox, and checking the doors. Probably were looking for his key. I don't keep one in my property, but my dad, grandma, and grandpa have a key as they keep theirs. My uncle did an overhaul of mine and Dad's cameras. We now have ones that had notifications to our phones when motion is detected. I took additional security measures by installing Ring doorbells at both the front and back doors, complete with enhanced features and discreetly positioned cameras. During the incident, I promptly visited the police department accompanied by my grandpa. As a result of her actions, my half-sister was booked for trespassing, although her stay in custody was brief, as my mom's mother picked her up from the station. They stuck to the law with me, offering half-sister a place to stay and gave statements. Not sure how that's going to go, but I'm taking steps to protect myself, my property, and my dad and his property. Half-sister doesn't have a record beyond this, so this was her first offense. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. It sounds awful, but I had hoped she would have at least one prior because commentaries make it seem like that would make the outcome of a permanent restraining order favorable. By your mom's mother does have a record, though. Harassment, trespassing, and DV. I shared this with the police as well. Anyway, I was able to get a temporary restraining order today, so here's the situation. I provided the police with camera footage, printed copies of the text messages, a USB containing evidence, and gave a detailed statement. They promptly reached out to a judge to secure a restraining order. In the midst of this, I discussed various matters with them, including self-defense recommendations, upgrading my security system, and considering obtaining a firearm for protection. The anxiety was palpable, and I found myself incessantly talking, realizing that these individuals knew my address and were willing to travel 6 hours to cause trouble, prompting a heightened sense of concern. The texts and voice messages hasn't stopped. I unblocked 2 muted their direct and indirect threats. Biomom's mother is adamant that since I have an entire house to myself, a stable job, and no children, I will be housing half-sister or should give me the ass-whooping my dad should have. Half-sister is only have one voice message about coming over later today, and that she's staying with me because that's what blood does. They help. When there was no response, she had me multiple texts telling me I need to be more understanding, that she's in a tough spot, and that she's moving in for at least a week until she's able to support herself. It's 7 days to gain tenancy here. Additional clarification for people asking about the age gap. I'm in February of hers baby. My half-sister was born on November 29th. I mentioned the exact 9 months because, although I haven't delved into the specifics of weeks and days, I felt that sharing her age provided relevant context. As for the lack of a relationship with her, I'm uncertain if she was premature, and to be honest, I've never inquired. Some individuals have mentioned having similar gaps in their relationships, so I don't have any additional insights to contribute. Multiple people also ask if I had a half-sister, and that is how her has had for everything she's had as a child and for things her parents did. In my first post, I talked to someone who did come and admitted that this has been a few years earlier. I may have helped have sent her without much thought and no was children. She was just parroting her parents. I don't fault her for that, nor do I blame her for my mom abandoning me, but it's been 17 years. We've been legal adults for 7 of those years. She could have reached out at any point but didn't and said she had no sister. I also could have reached out at any point but also didn't. I just moved on with my life. I was in therapy since I was abandoned, and it took me years to move on from no one on that side actually wanting me. Now she's making herself a problem. My mom's mother aside, half-sister was sitting on my porch with a suitcase ready to force herself into my home and life. She willingly took a 6-hour journey to my home, spent half an hour on my porch, and then proceeded to lie to the police. All her parents have denied any connection multiple times. She never acknowledged me until she found herself in need, and now she's imposing herself on my life using the pretext of family ties. I don't harbor hatred toward her. That requires too much energy, but I do respect her now alongside her grandmother and the rest of her family. I was ignored for years and now I feel unsafe in my own home just because half-sister and those around her can take no for an answer. This isn't about my mom's affair. This is about half-sister and her family ruining my safe space, my home, with her crap. The past is a factor in that resentment now, because again I haven't spoken to her in 17 years. I don't know what she looked like, but settling was just hers because she needed someplace to stay. I definitely resent that. Also, I feel validated in my choices. Posting to Reddit, asking for and taking advice, listening to my dad. The attorney has echoed the sentiments expressed by many commenters, advising on strategies like blocking and muting to gather evidence of harassment. I also contacted 2 police officers, presenting them with the messages as proof that there was no implied invitation. Surprisingly, it turns out that even allowing my half-sister to stay on my porch could have been a potential complication in this situation. Giving the cops to camera footage of houses turned by mom's mother looking for a spare key was also a good move. Even going about upgrading security, getting self-defense items, and asking officers about self-defense for accommodations in my wish to get a gun for her protection works in my favor. It shows that even though this was half-sister's idea,